I'm going to show you how to find confidence intervals using the calculator. The calculator's stat menu has a really nice feature. Let's go ahead and start here with example 3. So in example 3, we have a random sample of 50 daycare centers, so n is equal to 50. For preschoolers, found that a yearly average cost was $3,987. So that would be our sample mean. So 3987, and we're given a population standard deviation, so sigma is $630. Because we've got that population standard deviation, we know that we're going to be able to do a Z confidence interval, and we want to find the 90% confidence interval. I'm going to go over to the calculator and run this through the stat menu. So I'm going to go to stat and then over to tests. I am looking for a Z interval is what we're looking at here. So a Z interval. So as I move down here, the Z interval is number 7 on my calculator. So I go down to number 7. And then it's going to prompt me for some of these values. So first it says, are you using data? Notice that it has the list as L1, and I'm not using a list of data. We will in the next example. They just gave me stats. They gave me a mean and a standard deviation. So I'm going to go ahead and arrow through this. They're asking for the population standard deviation, which we have as 630. Whoops, let's go 630. And then it wants the sample mean, that's our point estimate, that's 3987. N was equal to 50, and the confidence level for this one was 90, so 0.90. And then I go ahead and just hit calculate. I'm going to quickly check 3987 and 630. Everything looks good. I go ahead and hit enter, and it gives me my confidence interval. So as I rewrite these numbers into the proper form, we have $3,840.50 is less than or equal to the actual mean price paid, is less than or equal to $4,133.50. So we're able to build that confidence interval really easily with the calculator. Now for example number 4. In example number 4, we are given a list of data. So we're going to run a confidence interval again, but with data. In number 3 here, we were working with stats. So if I were to go to my confidence interval through the tests menu, so down there to the Z interval, I noticed that if I put this on data, it's going to ask me for where my list of data is entered. So I need to go ahead and enter my list. It's also going to ask me for a population standard deviation. As I look here, we have an unknown population standard deviation. Since we have an unknown population standard deviation, that means that we're going to be running a T interval instead. So we're going to run a T interval, but we don't need to look up the T-score. The calculator is going to do that for us. So we need to enter our data first. Let's go ahead and exit out of our stat menu. I'm going to go back into the stat menu, but choose edit this time and enter my data. I went ahead and entered it beforehand, but I've just typed it here into L1. Just want to make sure you remember where you put the data so you can tell your T interval where the data lives. So I've got my data in here already, and it should go through that last data value of 227, and it does. So now I'm ready to run my test. So I'm just going to quit out of here. And I'm going to choose my stat and then over to tests. And I'm looking now for a T interval. No population standard deviation, so I choose the T interval. I do have data selected. If data isn't selected, you're just going to arrow over it and hit enter. My list is in L1. If you needed to change it to L2, you would just do second L2. Mine was L1, so let me do that again. Back to second L1. I'm not using a frequency list. I'm using every data value once, so I go ahead and leave the frequency at 1. My confidence interval this time is 0.95. So 0.95 from that example, 0.95, and then I go ahead and hit calculate. It's as easy as that. So I go ahead and transfer this into the correct form. So 222.94 these are prices, right, of a smartphone. So $222.94 is less than or equal to the actual mean price, which is less than or equal to $274.26. This tells me with 95% confidence that the true mean price lives between $222.94 and $274.26.